What is happening, Mark? How are you today, my friend Mark Bare Naked Willie? This is another Friday, BS Friday, another one. I cannot believe how many are going by. It seems like we just started this. How are you, brother?
Dave Cooper live. Dave Cooper. This is 41. Am I correct? Last week was Kylie and Steve. We did the deconstruction. Next week is Rob, and I believe I'm right on 41. If my number is wrong, there's a lot of people smarter than me, so I hope they tell us.
But, you know, we still have our bet where you can memorize every show and you know every person from every show. That's getting into the hundreds, man. But I have no doubt somewhere you keep all that data in that beard, I bet.
So far it's all there. The problem that I guess I'm partly responsible for creating, Dave, is multiple guests on one show, right? So it's not just one person. It's multiple people, oftentimes two, or maybe today.
4? 4? Well, listen, you're not kidding. You like to just keep me busy behind the scenes, man. Keep my brain going, which I love.
Speaking of 4, right? Speaking of 4, the power of 4 is LinkedIn,
YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. Why are we on Twitch, Mark?
Because Greg Ugaldi told us that Twitch is where all the cool kids play.
That's right. That's right. Hey, listen, we got to go where the young people are. All right, everybody, welcome to the show at Dave Cooper Live. We are bringing you the people and the processes that are building it better. Our guests include topics from building systems to building science to building codes and the tech used to build it better. And today is no different as we seek out the brightest and the best in the industry, and we are collaborating to become one. And today is a show of such. Today's a show where we're bringing multiple shows onto one platform for a multiple show conversation to grow everybody's vision and conversations and collaboration and build a network of one. I mean, that's really what we need to do, Mark, to grow this, is not be so scattered and come together, and let's have some real conversation. Let's have some fun, and let's show them that BS is truly a lot of fun and not just about bullshit.
Speaking of one, Dave, that was so well put. At the end of the show, I think we have a special announcement about more crossovers coming. So if I forget to do that, just kick me, Dave, and remind me. I think there's someone that we have as a special surprise. Are you ready for this, Dave?
I don't know what you're talking about, Mark. I don't think anybody knows this person. I don't think this person even exists. I've never seen this person anywhere on social media.
Got it. Well, then I'm going to make an introduction, Dave. I would like you and everyone who haven't met this person, apparently, I would like everyone to give a warm welcome to our special surprise guest who is going to introduce our speakers tonight. They don't know this is happening. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the one, the only, Jake Bruton.
Welcome. Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me. Travis is texting me already going, is Mark about to bring you on? I'm glad that Travis recognizes our logo.
Yeah.
Jake, it's great having you on the show. We met last year at the dinner with Matt Reisinger. We all at the hotel. We all sat down at that dinner. That was, I think, the first time that I've seen you, and that's the last time I talked to you. So, welcome, man.
It's been a while. Thank you, guys. So I'm really thankful that Mark invited me on to introduce these 4. I'm also thankful he's wearing my hat. It was worth giving it to him. A year and a half or 2 years ago, I knew who some of these people were. I didn't know who all of these people were. And now I feel like I know them, even though Emily and I have never met in person. So let's run down the list of the guests for today. Let's start with Kylie. Kylie Jacques is the senior editor of Green Building Advisor. She plans, creates, edits, sources, executes all kinds of fascinating, informative content. If you're not familiar with GBA, if you're not subscribed to GBA, this is one of those, like I have a short list of publications that my crews should read, listen to, and educate themselves with, and GBA is the top of that list. When it comes to the content of forward thinking and really well described technical stuff, GBA is one of my favorites. And when we start talking about forward thinking, we can introduce the other three. We can introduce Michael Maines, one of my favorite residential designers, who I think is absolutely fantastic. I've been reading stuff from Michael for some time. I've listened to him speak. I've met him in person, and he is as polite as he comes across online in person as well. Next would be Emily Mottram, Mottram Architect, or Architecture. Emily is an architect in Maine, just the same state as Michael. And Emily is also a podcast host. I like the E3 podcast, and just all around content creator. And as the squares continue to morph, we have Travis Brungart. Travis is a builder, author, content creator, adequate friend.
Adequate. Hey, Travis, you be my friend. You'll
I don't want to oversell it.
That's high praise from Jake.
It is
the sliding scale.
But I think that there's also something that's important with this group of four. The reason that you guys are having them on is what they do for the industry to share their knowledge and push the conversation forward, and really educate others, inform others, and challenge others on the way that they're doing things. The conversations that I've had on their show were definitely as challenging a building conversation as I've had elsewhere. And that community that they're building with that show, and the way that you guys all treat each other and treat your guests, is something that we kind of have missed the last year. And I'm glad that you guys have this forum, and I'm glad that that you are there, and I'm happy to have been asked to introduce you guys.
So
nice. Thank you, Jake.
Yeah, Jake. So everybody also knows who you are on our platform. I know you're world renowned. You know, I watch all the shows, but why don't and you're more than an acquaintance to me. You know, I love it. I feel like I know you already just from all the cross interactions that we have with other people. Why don't you tell our audience a little bit about who you are, what you do, and then we'll get started with the show.
For sure. I am a builder and remodeler in Columbia, Missouri. I co-host the Unbuild It podcast with Steve Basic and Peter Yost. We publish first and third Thursday of the month. I'm a weekly contributor to the Build Show Network. And I also sometimes write for Fine Home Building and JLC. And I'm a father, and sometimes I get to sleep.
I love it.
And he's an adequate friend. Just adequate.
Just adequate.
Nice.
Jake, I'm dying to become friends with you. I want to see if I can raise the bar. Oh, you'll never live that one down. You'll never live that one down. All right, listen, everybody. So if you're just joining us, please hit that like and share button right now. We are live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. What do? We lose Jake already? So today's going to be a lot of fun. As you can see, we have a lot of talent on today. We got so many people that have their own shows, their own broadcasts, and so on and so forth. And we're looking to bring these groups together in the community. In today's conversation, we're going to be talking about all kinds of new things, new codes, new building standards, BS and beer, and everything in between. So with that said, I know you had a wonderful, adequate introduction from Jake, but I want to go through, if each and every one of you could tell us a little bit about who you are, what you're about. We want to know everything from the moment you were born to this very moment in time, and don't leave out any of the good stuff from the hospital. I will call your mother, and Mark's mother knows I will do that. He can vouch for that, but you only have 2 minutes each to do it. So I think, Emily, you should go first.
Oh, great. No pressure. I'm Emily Mottram. I am an architect here in Maine. I specialize in high performance, pretty good house. So we'll talk more about that later. I have a weekly podcast, E3 Energy and Efficiency with Emily. It's available on Apple, Spotify, my website, wherever you want to find it. I grew up in Pennsylvania and I went to Penn State to architecture school. My dad is a dairy farmer, so people often ask about my background, and my grandfather was a contractor. So that's the beginning. You can call my mom and ask her to confirm that. But I went to Penn State, and then I wanted to go to a city. I wanted to move to Chicago. I ended up in DC. And after 2 years in DC, my husband and I flipped a coin. He won. We moved to Maine, which is where his family is. And I've been here mostly ever since. He did a 3-year stint in New York where I drove back and forth. So we are happily back in Maine, living on the coast. And I get to join Travis and Kylie and Mike every week on the BS and Beer Show. So that's me and what I've been doing.
Love it. Love it. All right, Emily. Perfect. I think that was a phenomenal little intro. Kylie, you are up. Let's see it.
Kylie Jacques. I am a senior editor at Green Building Advisor. I was formerly with Fine Home Building Magazine, which is another publication sponsor of the BS and Beer Show. Closely tied to Green Building Advisor, their sister publications. I was the design editor there for 2.5 years before moving into this role. Background, let's see, I have a philosophy degree, which was pretty useless. So I wound up pursuing a profession as a gardener for 22 years. And that came with a whole host of challenges, and I got to a ceiling with it, wanted to learn more, do more, wound up going back to school for a third time to get a degree in editing and writing. And one thing led to another. I worked for the United States Green Building Council as a writer, still contribute to their membership publication. And, a position opened up at Fine Home Building, and I went for it. And I have Steve Basic to thank for it in part. I always want to give him that tribute. Met some wonderful people. So happy to be amongst this community, and I'm going to just leave it there.
Perfect. I love it. I used to read Fine Home Building all the time. No joke. I think that was one of my favorite magazines back in the day when I was doing a lot of custom work. So, all right, moving on. Mike, you are up, my friend.
Thanks, Dave. I'm Mike Maines. I'm a residential designer in Maine. I also stutter, so if the screen freezes up, it may be the internet, or it may just be me. It's something I've struggled with forever, and we all deal with something. I started out. I got a college degree in architectural engineering. I wanted to be a timber framer, but after I got that degree, I was a carpenter for 10 years all over New England. Eventually found my way back to Maine, where I grew up. And got into residential design, and then gradually over time got more and more into building science and green building and the impacts of what our built environment has on the environment and on people's health. And so now I do pretty much what architects do. I just have a different path of how I got here. I'm also a contributing editor at Fine Home Building, which doesn't really mean anything. It just means I've been writing for them for 15 years, and they threw a title at me. But it's a great publication. I really enjoy it. I've been writing for our GBA since it started, and I'm really, really happy to be here with everybody today.
Love it. All right, here we go. Travis, you are up, man. Go for it.
Hello. Yeah, I'm Travis Brungart. Myself and my partner Joe Cook own and operate Catalyst Construction just outside of Kansas City, in a suburb called Prairie Village. We do residential remodeling and new home construction. I guess my backstory, my credentials, my rap sheet. I built sets for the theater program in high school. I worked as a photographer doing construction documentation, so I got sort of an eye for detail through that, and then found myself remodeling and doing electrical work in a small residential remodeling company here in Shawnee, Kansas. And then Joe and I ended up working for the same production home builder, Conference Construction, here in KC for a while, and decided in about 2008 that maybe we should get something going on the side, because the forecast was looking a little bleak. And we founded Catalyst Construction with a third partner, and have never missed a day of work since. So we've recently, probably 7-8 years ago, so not all that recent, were exposed in our local contractor licensing class to Mark Liberté. He gave a great talk on the building envelope, which sort of inspired us to maybe do a little better in our build. And we became very focused on performance and trying to add that aspect as our top priority and not an afterthought. And through paying attention to that stuff, I ran across Mike Main's Instagram feed where he was talking about getting together at a brewery to discuss building science. And I lamented that, gosh, it would be nice if only I could go to Maine from Kansas City once a month to sit in the brewery and talk to these people who I admire and can teach me so much. And then we had a pandemic. So I got to talk to Mike every week since then. And it worked out really well for me. So I'm grateful for all of you people and everything that we're doing as a community. I'm very happy to be a part of it. I think there's a lot of good being done, and it says it's a direct link to the stuff that Dave Cooper Live and Mark Wille are doing, just as much as the BS and Beer crew, Fine Home Building and Rebuilding Advisor, the Unbuild It podcast. I mean, really Instagram has a great community on it. So there's just so many wonderful things going on right now. I'm just grateful to be a part of it.
Yeah, I love this. Mark, we've been talking about this. I think we need a 24-hour show where we just go from one show to the next show, and we have like a TV station where it just runs for 24 hours, and not only with people in this country, but we bring in podcasts and live streamers from other countries as well, so we can really build this community and gain a lot of maybe we can gain some more press, the Fine Home Building magazines and all the other magazines. Anybody know any editors out there?
I know a few.
I love it. I love it. Mark, listen, this show right here is so up your alley on the guests, the people, the topics, and mine as well. Why don't you kick us off on this conversation, because this is going to be a journey.
Sure. I have to go back to two things first, because we all travel down a road. First, I've never heard the word adequate used in the way it was. So I'm always going to remember that. And when I see you, Jake, I'll make sure to put hot sauce in your sandwich when you're not looking.
And I promise not to make a 30-second micro clip on that.
Yeah, you promise not to. Yeah, sure you do. And then so when we think about how we all meet and the messages we all share, this week was especially important because the magazine Fine Home Building hit that 40-year anniversary mark, and when all of us hit our 40th anniversaries, I hope we have a black and white print and wonderful photos to recognize and reminisce about, because to me in life, there's two magazines. There's National Geographic and there's Fine Home Building, and both of which are treasured resources.
So for sure. And Fine Home Building's out of New England, right? Is it out of Southbury, actually, I think, or somewhere in that area, correct?
It's Newtown. The Taunton Press publishes both, Fine Home Building and Green Building Advisor.
Sure.
Perfect. So we're going to naturally get to BS and Beer. So for our audience out there, know that that's coming. But before we get to BS and Beer, we've had many certifications on the show, and we've had many third-party type implementations, but we haven't had this treasured one. And I want whoever wants to join first, you'll be center screen. I would like you to tell the people what the Pretty Good House is, and I just think it's amazing, and I think that's a great place for us to start today. All right, I'm giving it to you, Emily. You have the smirk, so you get to go.
I was waiting for Mike to do it, because I would say that Mike is the godfather of the Pretty Good House movement. Him and Dan. But if Mike would like me to roll with it, I certainly can.
You could tag Mike too, right? So
tag Mike, you're it.
All right, I'll go.
I should go.
All right, so the Pretty Good House building standard is the building standard that's not a standard, and it's closely tied to BS and Beer because it started at what I believe is the original building science discussion group, which started in Portland, Maine, about 12 years ago. We got together there every month or so. for a couple of years. And then one of the founders and our moderator, Dan Colbert, came in one night. He had been working on a couple of LEED certified projects, and others of us were getting interested in Passive House. And we were just sort of lamenting how challenging and often arbitrary and always expensive those programs are, and that we couldn't get our clients to go for those levels, but we wanted to have some guidelines or some consensus on what we should be building. You know, code minimum is the worst house you can legally build, not necessarily a charitable house, but it's the worst house you can legally build. At the other end of the spectrum, you have Passive House and LEED and Living Building Challenge and all those certification programs. So we brainstormed just what do we think everybody should be building. Called it a pretty good house. And I wrote a blog post about it for Green Building Advisor, and the idea hasn't died. So people seem to like the fact that it's common sense, it's crowdsourced, there's no money changing hands. The core idea is, or in terms of performance, energy performance, the idea is keep making energy improvements until they stop making financial sense. I think Pretty Good House is the only standard that doesn't that includes financial discussions. Or we all know in the building world, finances are at the heart of most projects and decisions, but most of the standards ignore them. So it's a common sense building standard. I'll leave it at that.
So can I just, before we jump into that, common sense, I love common sense, but talk to me a little bit about crowdsourcing. Like, so how does that work with the house? Crowdsourcing, meaning that our original group or original list of what goes into a pretty good house was just the, I think we had, or we had a few meetings, but I think we started out with maybe 35 of us or so, and then maybe up to 60 of us in a room drinking beer with Dan at the chalkboard taking notes. Should the house, should there be an air leakage standard? If so, what should it be? At the time, ACH 50 was not a well-known term. So first we had to, agree on what is ACH 50, and then is it, should it be 10? Should it be 7? Should it be 5? Should it be 3? We settled on, 1 to 2 is a good range. Energy performance, we borrowed numbers from Joe Stebrick and Building Science Corp. And so just we sort of pieced together ideas like that. Also, borrowed ideas from LEED in terms of location and infrastructure. And then on Green Building Advisor, there's been a lot of talk over the last 10 years or so. People in different climate zones have different requirements. If you're in Florida, you don't need what we need in Maine or what you might need in Seattle. Love it. And the fact that the financial side of what it takes to actually build a home is part of the conversation. Is that how I'm understanding that? Because as a builder, of 20 years, modular construction, every time you started getting into energy efficiency, green is gray product, whatever you want to call it, back in the day, it became a financial decision on whether they would make that decision or not, just for the simple stuff. You're incorporating this into the way you're building the house. Like, I've done LEED homes. So you're saying we're not only going to look at the cost to do the LEED, what the financial impact is on the client. That's all up front?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So we have prescriptive numbers, targets, those. So if you don't want to do energy modeling, you can use the prescriptive numbers that again are borrowed from Joe Stebrick. What a lot of us are doing, what I do, is energy model each project and look at incremental improvements starting from code minimum. What if you use this upgraded window? What if you used our 30 walls? What if you used our 40 walls, et cetera? And then look at, the estimated cost of those improvements, and then generate a return on investment. And so at least on my projects, I can virtually always, I can't think of a time where I haven't been able to show at least a 5 to 10% return on investment for doing energy improvements that go above code minimum. And then one of the magic things is you get to a point where the building envelope is good enough, tight enough and well insulated enough that then you can go go with a minimal heating and cooling system, or one or two mini splits are enough to heat the house comfortably. You don't need a $40,000 system. You need a $15,000 system. So you've just paid for most of those envelope improvements. Yeah.
I love it.
That's such a great point. So it allows people to see the trade-offs in our industry by the ultimate adjustments you make to the assembly. The requirement for the heating and cooling and ventilation is affected, and the window strategy and so on. And for some reason, that's not very well known in this incredible world of construction. And I just think it should be a standard and practice that is followed. So if you're on today and you haven't heard of the Pretty Good House, that example that Michael gave, welcome to the Pretty Good House, and use it from now on. Now that you've heard of it, you can't go backwards.
I love this. You said one other thing, and this is where I come in with my pro tip to people, builders out there. I love how you say your investment. We use that. Like when we're building houses and what we do, we never say to a client, here's your quote, right? Here's your estimate. We say, here's your investment summary. That's how we always present it. And the fact that you're saying that, I think, is absolutely amazing, because that's exactly what it is for people that are spending, the biggest investment of their life on a home. Calling it their investment is, I think, brilliant, and I commend you for that.
Thank you. There is more to it also, though, than just the energy performance. We also borrow a lot of that health related things. So things like off-gassing and local materials and things like that maybe don't have the return on investment aspect involved, but just that code construction doesn't care about, and even programs like Passive House are not focused on embodied carbon, but we want to not only have the people healthy, but the environment healthy. So we push low carbon options. We don't insist on it, but just in new construction, there's never, it's a holistic approach. I'll stop.
It's a conversation to go beyond, right? And all of you carry that forth on a weekly basis. Go beyond. Like, please don't think when you go for code that you're achieving something, right? Because you're just above the barely legal limit, and we don't purchase our vehicles that way. Like, how soon is this baby gonna break down? Good night. I think before we dive deeper, Dave, believe it or not, guys, we're at 12:33 or 1:33 or 10:33, depending on where you are in the world and on your devices. Are there some people that have any questions, Dave, or say hellos to?
Of course, there's people to say hello. Let's run through the list, right? We got good old George Ryman. Hey, George. Good morning from Phoenix, Arizona. We have Stanley Principali. I think I said that right. Cheers from Montreal, Quebec. Good to see.
Got it.
Love it. Love it. We have Buzz Holitzer out there today. Happy Friday, spelled with a PH. We got Damien joining us from Dublin, Ireland. What's happening, Damien? Thanks for tuning in today. Always love having you on the show. Peter Molinar's on Friday with Friends. He's so true.
Perfect.
All right. Buzz says Free Willy.
Love the PHs. You spelled Willie wrong, brother, but that's okay.
Peter Molinar, 4 or 4. Let's go back to earlier comments there. All right, moving down. Eric Schmidt, I like GBA.
Of course you do. We all do, brother.
Hey, Mark, why don't you tell everybody what GBA is?
Green Building Advisor, I would suspect.
There you go.
Or it could be a beer, right?
Green beer.
Instead of an IPA, hey, I'll have a GBA.
What you guys will soon realize about what we do on this show, because I don't have a full background in building science. I learn every day, and my job is to dumb it down, because we all love to talk to ourselves and we all understand our own lingo. So I ask these questions because we have a world of audience out there that's here to learn what these things mean and what the acronyms are. So don't think I'm being a smart aleck. It's just
and in fact, please be a smart aleck. So a lot of times we also like to have fun with the acronyms and create our own definition. Like GBA could stand for a green badass, right? you happen to be that person on the job that owns the title green badass. And throughout the show, if anyone thinks of another acronym, please either put it in the comment section or Emily, Travis, Mike, Kylie, you guys have a microphone. Use it at any point.
Yeah. Jump in, Travis. And I know Jake's in the background. Michael, Kelly, Emily, Kylie. Listen, if you have jobs out there or people are working, I think a GBA for your project, instead of project manager, PM, that's boring. It should be the GBA. Running the jobs, right? It's
General badass, of course.
Dave, that is groundbreakingly adequate.
It is that. Well, since we're only hanging out with adequate friends, I thought it'd be appropriate. Oh, this is going to go on. Let me get off that before I make enemies with Jake here. All right, Shannon Pendleton, preach. Love it. Rob Hoskin, thanks for spreading the good cheer. And George Ryman says, I keep telling my kids that GPA is very important.
GPA, I guess. Yeah, that's genuinely Pennsylvania, I guess.
I love it. And Rob, hey, we're going to see Rob soon, I believe. Isn't that right, Mark?
Rob is up next week. He sent me a plethora of photos with a PH, because it really is with a PH. And it's going to be another good conversation. Back to the Pretty Good House then, and I hope people can ask some questions in the background. How do you introduce Pretty Good House? So if someone finds you and said, we have this project coming up. What's the way in which you bring it forward, since it's your wheelhouse? Yeah,
can I add to that with you, Mark?
Yeah.
And I agree with Mark. Like, why would I want to do a pretty good house? Like, that's what Mark said. Like, it's your wheelhouse. So you're an architect. I come to you. Why not lead? Why not these other programs that have been out there? I think that would be an awesome elevator pitch. And I'm just tagging on to what you said there, Mark.
Awesome.
I nominate Emily for this. I think Emily's actually better at implementing it than I am. So,
Emily, you're going full screen. This is your time. No stress. Don't worry about it. It's live. If it's going to go wrong, it will. It's just the way it goes. So don't worry about it.
Well, I'm usually the technical person on BS and Beer, so every time we have a screw up, it's always my fault. So this is the time for it to happen. But Pretty Good House. So there are lots of people in the market saying they're doing green things or they're doing high performance, but that doesn't mean anything to a client. So I say from the beginning, I designed the Pretty Good House standard, and then they can pop over to Pretty Good House and they can educate themselves on what does that mean for them, right? It's a definition of doing better without it feeling like they have to do a certification program. So I actually write it into all of my contracts that we're going to design this house for you or do this renovation, whatever you have, and it's to the Pretty Good House standard. And it starts from there, and it starts as a conversation. And Mike will tell you that the first time he met me, I said, those who educate the market own the market. And I still firmly believe that. And so it's all about that education standpoint. Is people don't want to hear science. They don't want to hear a lot of the technical stuff, which we're all really good at talking about. But Pretty Good House is a great way to get people into the idea of comfort, safety, health, durability, carbon storing. If they get all the way down to it, they've kind of already bought into this idea. But it's just, I think, solidifying us as practitioners that we're providing them with something that isn't just, a whim on what you want. I mean, here in Maine, you don't have to be licensed to be a contractor. So, I'm licensed as an architect, but homeowners don't know what they're getting. And so you send them to Pretty Good House and you say, hey, look, read into this. I follow this path. This is what I do every day and what I do. And this is how we make it better.
You know what's funny with that, Emily, is you also don't have to be licensed to be a homeowner.
You should have to do that.
Right.
That should be a thing. There should be the home buyer or you're going to build a house class should be a requirement for everybody.
If you're operating a motor vehicle, which is essentially a key and a pedal and this little turny thing, right? Maybe a switch and certainly a radio, you need a license. But if you operate something that is keeping you dry, is keeping you warm or cool, is protecting your valuables, your family, and your food, I think a little bit of operator knowledge is going to be good, because essentially we all build incredible buildings, but the operators tend to screw them up.
All buildings are great until they have occupants.
That's right. Or windows.
I say that about business. I say business is easy until people get involved.
Can I throw a plug in here, you guys? Because Emily was just mentioning about giving her clients resources for educating themselves. And I think it's super exciting. And this seems like an opportune moment to mention the fact that Mike and Emily are currently writing a book on the Pretty Good House. And I don't know if that's common knowledge or not, but that's going to be published by the Taunton Press, and it's going to be a resource long in coming. And up until now, I imagine Emily and Mike have been pointing people to all of the content on Fine Home Building and Green Building Advisor, but this is going to be, one solid resource to have to share what the Pretty Good House is with potential clients and homeowners.
I love it. Mark, why are we always hanging out with so many overachievers?
Well, because our buildings need and the people that live in them, which is all of us, they need the conversation. We were never encouraged to have these conversations. We had a job opening, or we were taught a trade or a skill through someone we know, but we were often not encouraged to go beyond. Standards were put in place over time, right? And we learned that practices were given for, let's say, spacing on studs and et cetera, and then we had lath in our walls, and then we had plasterboards. We had all these advancements in materials and techniques, but we were often not encouraged to go beyond and be inclusive in the whole conversation. Yeah. Because you have 15 different cooks in the kitchen, and they're all answering their own question. But until the whole team is put together, like a platform like the Pretty Good House, you have a lot of different wandering things. So that encouragement is, one, letting people know that Michael said it brilliantly. Holistically, there's an approach, right? So that plug, Kylie, is great. And I don't know where you're at in the status of the book, but to me, it almost seems like a workbook. So for people that are going down this journey, it was like years ago, Corbett Lunsford came out with the building performance workbook. It hadn't existed before. We're all like, what? We all do this daily. How is this not existing?
Right.
And there's countless lead manuals, but there's not really a workbook, because there's practitioners that handle things for you. So I think this is a great, I would love a nice hardcover one to be on the coffee table and have Kramer come and do a show on it. But I think a workbook would be incredible. So I'm sure that's between you guys and Taunton and all that. But wow, it's exciting. Great announcement.
Yeah, and I'm going to add to that, Kylie, because, we had Steve Basic and Alexandra on a couple weeks back. And one of the things that Alexandra was telling us, they don't teach them in architecture school about green design, energy efficiency design. She learned most of it from joining her dad's firm, And I think when you write a book or something like this, I just backing what Mark says, if there's a way to get this in the hands of the educational system and share that knowledge and share that information, so the people that are in school for this type of training get it.
And I think so a lot of the stuff that you guys do is a passion, right? And a mission. And so oftentimes our passions and missions are supported by our own dedication, our own time, and a lot of times our own pocketbooks. But I want to challenge the industry to say someone someone find me someone at Sharpie, whatever the parent company of Sharpie is. For all I know, it's Coca-Cola or General Motors. But find me the people at Sharpie, and let's get them to run 3 to 5 to 50,000 copies of this, and to hand this out to junior highs and to high schools with the red Sharpie marker, of course, and hand out these books and pre-sell them. Come on, Sharpie, get in the game. That's my challenge to the industry, that the red Sharpie people buy these books and hand them out to our youth, so that they could start thinking about this in the years of their life, that can propel them to an industry and a building and a home of happy, healthy comfort.
Yeah, for sure. The Stephen Basic Sharpie. That's what it should be. They should have a branded Sharpie.
Big red, yeah.
Big red. It's got to be big red. I want to jump on just to talk about the Pretty Good House from the builder's vantage point more than the design standpoint, because as a builder, it's really the best of all worlds. That's what makes it such a desirable standard. I feel like there are a lot of great programs. I don't want to run any other program down to lift this one up. But the flexibility within the program, as I understand it, within the system, whatever you want to call it, the standard, is completely malleable. You can make it work for your climate. You can make it work for your budget. Joe and I had a client come to us a few months ago. They went to Jake first, and then they came to me and said, "Can we build this passive house?" And they gave us an extraordinarily low number, and I just said, "No, no, we cannot," which I think is what Jake told them too. But then they said, "Well, we were told we could build a passive house for $150 a square foot." Like, well, not by Jake and not by me, but I think we can build a pretty good house at that number if we can work your square footage down a little bit. If we can reduce the number of windows, which Emily talks a ton about having windows in the right places, and just pursuing the efficiencies in design, of course, but then by choosing an assembly that's simplified and really basic stuff, working with trusses instead of stick building to gain a little efficiency there. I know Mark can talk to that. There's so many different ways to work within that standard to be successful that it makes sense that it's on all of Emily's contracts. I was super excited. I even pulled out my contract so I could show right there. You probably can't see it, but it says right down here. Pretty good house. Pretty good house.
That's awesome.
And
congratulations.
I'm so proud to be part of something that I think is really making a difference in our industry. And it's totally a credit to the other people on here. I'm a fan, not an expert on this one. I really am excited about this direction that we're moving, where we're not worried about putting a bike rack out front and scoring a certain item so I can put a plaque on the door and brag to my friends when I have the party. It really is about the occupant. It's about the environment and the life of that building making a difference in the world. It's a beautiful thing. I'm really, really excited about it. And I'm so excited for the book. I only needed it a year ago. But the website is actually really, it has a great amount of information already there. Younger people like websites anyway, so they're ahead of the game. There's been great articles on, Mike just released the Pretty Good House 2.0 article in Fine Home Building, 5-6 issues ago. There's information out there. So if anyone needs more information, go and get it, because it's really easy to get better working within this framework. I couldn't say enough good things about Pretty Good House.
So, and Travis, you plan to document that entire process from beginning to end, right? We'll do a big blowout article for you, or with you.
I would like to work with Kylie on anything that she wants me to do. I'm down. Make it happen.
Well, we're all the witnesses that you'll document anything that Kylie needs. So we're all witnesses to that. In our run through, there was something said.
A little editing here.
I can silence anybody I want. You just give me the thumbs up there. Hey, Travis, just video the whole thing, man. You'll be good. Go ahead, Mark. I keep cutting you off. Everybody's cutting Mark off today. What's up, Mark?
You're okay. We're not used to 6 people, especially on a topic this exciting. So we went through this in the run through, but I'm going to use it right now, and it should be used again. The fact that you're a fan of this, Travis, is of course fan with a PH. I love the bike rack part very much so, and I think truly all buildings should have bike racks for different reasons than points. But I think your interpretation there, and the fact that you were the first person on BS Fridays to show a contract of client engagement from the beginning of what's going to happen and how the process is going to be, that means that you're truly a catalyst for other builders to a pretty good house.
Nice. Nicely done.
Let me see, Mark. I have two things. So Emily, I want to come back to you, but I don't want you to answer this now. But I want to ask you about carbon storage, because we've discussed carbon disasters, we've discussed carbon footprint, but carbon storage is not something we discussed. So when we come back, I want to discuss that. But what I do want to do is I do want to share the Pretty Good House website screen with everybody, just so people can see that you guys do have a website. So if anybody wants to go there, should definitely check it out. It looks like, there's some pretty amazing things. You can read more. PGH 2.0. Is that Pittsburgh 2.0? I'm from Pittsburgh. I had to say it. And the BS and Beer show's on here as well. So listen, if you and just trying to plug everything that you guys are doing and showcasing these things. So for all you that are out there, there is a website. You can learn more about these things. Let's take a couple comments if we could. It's growing. I need to catch up. All right, here we go. Eric Schmidt says, Gab is gospel according to Basic.
Wow. Got it.
Adam White says, amen. Shannon Pendleton, OMG, can we sign up all my clients for that class?
Perfect.
I love it.
The answer is yes, Shannon. All your clients can take the Pretty Good House class.
All right, so we have a question here. When clients start value engineering a Pretty Good House project, what's the first to go and what do you fight to keep? That's a great question right there, and probably hard. It's like the Brady Bunch. We all going to start looking at each other. There's a story. Which one? Who's going for it? How about Travis? Travis, you were part of the sales process of a Pretty Good House, right?
Yeah, but I would certainly be a fool to not defer to Emily or Mike on this. Yeah, I've got one under my belt. Don't make me the expert.
Yeah, okay. Let's see it.
Yeah.
All right, there you go.
Yeah.
Emily, you just went. So, Mike, why don't you go on this one since Emily went last time?
Yeah, I'm not sure if my screen is freezing or you guys are. Hopefully, you can hear me.
I can hear you.
Yes. Okay. Good. I'd say the idea of super insulation is always on the cutting board. So, like our prescriptive standard in Climate Zone 6 is R40 walls and an R60 roof. Doing energy modeling, or to get to an R60 roof beyond a code minimum R49 roof doesn't take a lot of effort, but to go from an R20 wall to an R40 wall can take a lot of effort. So especially to make it foam free, which we prefer if possible. So often the walls get knocked down to maybe R30. We'd really like to see everybody using, U0.2 windows, but the difference in actual energy performance over the course of a year to go a little bit higher, U0.25, it's still better than code minimum. Those types of things we look at, and we use energy modeling to kind of determine what is the impact. So if a change is going to save $2,000 in construction costs, but if we included it, it would save $10 a year. That's a hard thing to justify.
Yeah. No, for sure.
I think appliance packages in housing can always be put on the shelf. Of course we need a fridge and these kind of things in our buildings, but at the end of the day, if we're shooting for 100, 150, 200, 250 year house that's durable, certainly resilient, uses less energy, that conversation on a fridge that's going to last 15 years and a stove that's going to last 15 and often is changed because of style, not even because it wears out, has nothing to do with those great points that Michael brought up. And that's the envelope, right? That's the hardcore discipline of saying this house is going to use less energy. It is going to be more comfortable. You haven't heard of it before. We get it, right? If you want to look at tile samples and paint colors and doorknobs, all good, but those things are additional items. The crux is you need a good shell, a really good shell.
My understanding of the Pretty Good House has always been that first and foremost, and I could be wrong about this, please correct me if I am, but my biggest takeaway has always been you start with the form and the size. And those are critical elements to get right from the get-go, because oftentimes people think they need more room than they actually do. And a lot of the architectural decisions along the way in terms of form can be eliminated. You have to have pretty good reason for creating complexities that add cost and sometimes thermal penalties. And so am I right to think that square footage and house shape are things to be discussed right off the bat, Mike and Emily?
It's a great question.
Yeah. Well,
Yes.
Well, go ahead, Emily.
Well, sorry, short answer. Yes.
Yeah.
That is the quickest way to get down there. Our buildings have doubled in size since the 50s, and people just have more and more square footage and less people that live in their houses, and we have a lot of weird wasted space that you built that and can't do anything with it. So that's always the first conversation for me. People will say, well, I need 2,500 square feet. And I say, no, why don't you tell me what it is that you need in your house for how you're going to use it? And we'll figure out what kind of square footage we end up with in the end. And a really good design will take advantage of some things that trick your eye, that make you feel like the space is bigger than it is. So we often get comments about that. We have a double stud wall farmhouse that's 1,700 square feet on the outside, 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath. So interior space is even less than that with the double stud wall. People come in all the time and they're like, there's no way this house is only 1,700 square feet. I'm like, well, yeah. I can tell you how it works, but
it's called a tape measure. It doesn't lie,
the magic
right?
would be.
Well, people can't understand 2D plans, and I don't think if you stand in a space, you can be like, this is roughly this amount of square footage, right? So let's talk about the things you're going to put in it, because the other stuff is square footage is just the number the tax department uses to figure out how much taxes you owe. That's what square footage is.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
One time I did a master closet that was 450 square feet. And they were asking, of course, if it was too elaborate, and that's before the built-in and the cabinet section, you know, for the watches and everything.
Were children going to live in it? Well, like all clients, they tend to get pregnant during the construction project, and all of a sudden you could change the timeline. I don't know what it is about construction, but people tend to get pregnant during a construction project. And then
I've noticed
very
that.
romantic. Very romantic.
Very romantic, yeah. And on the same accord, I've also built 450 square foot units, right? So it's Emily's favorite answer, and she invented this term, so no one can take it. It depends.
So the baby boom is not going to be because of COVID. It's going to be because of the housing market. I love it. I love it. I can't wait to see that on headline news coming up here soon to us. All right, let's move on. Joe, by the way, that was a great question. It definitely spurred a lot of conversation. Henry Mickelberg is joining us. Isn't it strange how some people don't have even a vague idea on how their houses or cars work? Going back to Mark's comments earlier, absolutely. Buzz says, Big Red to the rescue. Eric says, Mark, you insurgent. All right, Eric, take it down a notch. Here we go. Damien, having seen the destructive nature of family homes in Texas on foot of the big freeze, does the panel have any comments on water damage and the fire in the multi-home complex? So This is interesting. I was just having this conversation, Mark, and this is something we talk. You know, they're using 2x4 construction out west. They're not using 2x6. They're not using the higher R values. Not that that would make a difference when you lose every ounce of power that one has, but it's got to help a little bit. Who wants to start on that one?
Well, first I have to plead ignorance. I've never heard of a 2x6. I thought there was only a T-stud. I didn't know there was a 2x6. I thought those went with the 2x4s. But
these are older homes we're talking about, Mark.
I'll tell you what, the 2x4s were phenomenal, right? You had old growth Doug fir balloon frame 2x4s that are super phenomenal. And I don't know what fire this guy's comment was referencing. But the cold in Texas, I can only say that that's from global warming. That's my scientific response. I don't understand the question enough, other than to throw a joke forward.
All right.
I think they're going at the durability of the way we build now, and I don't think there's a lot I would want to change in response to a very rare event. You know, we get a lot of calls in weird weather like this, like we're having now, where it's been, -6 for a week, and this one vanity sink has frozen pipes. What should we do to rip out all the plumbing and solve this? Well, we can do a $4,000 fix to that, or you can open that cabinet when it's 8 degrees. I mean, I just don't think that everything needs a massive response as a blanket rule. I do think that obviously they're going through an incredibly difficult situation in Texas, and I don't mean to be flippant about that at all. Not having clean water, not having access to power, it's a serious, dangerous health issue. And so I wish there was a way to have a universally durable design that was not affected by these events, but I'm not sure that we need an industry-wide change to combat singular weather events. I don't know the answer to that. I need someone smarter than me to fix that for me.
I think it's a wise comment, right? Because we have peak heating days and we have peak cooling days, and we have the 100-year floods and we have the anomalies. So if it's a reoccurring thing, right? Like Houston gets those floods every year. Houston gets those floods, and then we rebuild in those same spots. If it's a reoccurring thing, then we need to reevaluate what we're doing on that particular parcel. But I think your answer was super, Travis. Like, I remember my grandma growing up. She's like, just in that bathroom, because the house didn't have MEP when she moved into it. The house that she moved into, she spent her whole life in it. So that was added over time. The plumbing was on the outside wall with heavily corroded galvanized pipe, and it was right above the old coal bin. Right. So yeah, she knew how to adjust and let the water flow. So I think yeah, there's a discipline, and this goes back to an operation manual for your house. There's a discipline of how you behave. I mean, when we grew up, when it's cold outside, that means you put on another sweatshirt and you add another blanket. That didn't mean you were allowed to ever adjust the thermostat. But for the folks that are currently without water and without electric, that doesn't mean my prayer and heart doesn't go out to you. It's just that's a whole segue.
Yeah, I agree. So I see a note here, Kylie. I know you have some other commitments you got to jump into in a few minutes. So
I didn't mean to interrupt the show. I thought that was going to be a private message. I didn't know it was going to get shared.
It's actually
I just have a call.
It's not that at all. I think to have you on this show is a privilege for us, and I don't want it to keep going to where people don't really get to learn a little bit more about you and how they can read your articles and what you're doing. I think it's super important that everybody that comes on this show, because we get off track. We just start thinking we can all talk and go. But I honestly, why don't you take a few moments and just tell everybody what you have coming up? Is there anything in particular you want to share about yourself and what you're doing, and how do people get a hold of you?
Well, I'll just say that when we talked about this show, we mentioned talking a little bit about the BSM Beer show that we do. So maybe we could have a little conversation around that rather than me. I do a blog every Sunday that announces the show that was just aired and gives a little recap and then tells you what's coming. And for anybody listening in your audience who's not familiar with the BS and Beer show, it came out of a response to the pandemic, and it has become a real fun thing for a lot of people. And it airs on Thursday nights from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. And it's such a wealth of knowledge. We've put a lot of thought into who comes on and what topics we might cover. And I guess I just want to get to that piece of it because I think it's a real valuable resource for all of us involved and all of us and all of the audience members as well. So maybe we can chat about that for a few minutes.
Yeah, I also think, Kylie, thanks for saying that. So we got really into the Pretty Good House because it's so topical, and I would also like to have you guys back again for the BS and Beer because we barely breached. So we have much more to BS at Building Science about. So thank you for bringing that back around, Kylie.
Well, in fact, all of the episodes of BS and Beer are available on YouTube, and Mike recently shared the presentation that he gave at Fine Home Building Summit 2 years ago about the Pretty Good House. So that's also a resource for anybody who wants to know, get into the weeds on it.
Yeah, I shared that YouTube, and I'll share it, or someone could share it if you're watching right now in the comment section. It's a great point. So sometimes we're not able to make a Tuesday afternoon or a Thursday night show, but Sean St. Amour always says it to Dave. He's like, it's Building Science and chill, right? It's when you have that time on the weekend or the nights. That's the joy of this. If you can't be a part of the show live, which is the thrilling thing to do because the comments on your show are incredible in the chat. But the fact that you're able to harness that and meet these people virtually, like Travis pointed out, he gets to hang with his people in Maine every week, and you're different presenters from around the industry. It's all one click away. YouTube, man.
It's all there. You can always go back and watch it. We hear it all the time. People don't have every day and every night to watch, but they can go back and listen to it on the weekends or whatever. So I think it's great. Kylie, I think you're awesome. Honestly, I think what you're doing and I love the fact that you didn't right out of the gate promote yourself. You wanted to promote other people and their books and write about what they're doing. I think that's a story that needs to be told more often because as an editor, you're really behind the scenes a lot of time other than your name at the bottom. And love to see you come back on the show and have more conversation on the BS and Beer as well.
Well, I appreciate that. That's my joy, is featuring other people's work. I prefer to be behind the scenes. That's why writers are writers.
Right. That's right. Well, you sent me an email more than 2 sentences. I'm probably calling you, just giving you a heads up. That's why I like to be on video. So I love it.
Okay, I didn't mean to cut out early. That was how I anticipated it. But thank you for inviting me. I'm very happy to have come here and to make your acquaintance.
Yeah, you as well. But no, you leave when you're ready. I just wanted to make sure you got that in. So
okay, all
right. Let's hop back into it, Mark. Do we want to hit a couple more hellos and comments and then hop back into the conversation, or you want to pick up?
Yeah, I want to take everyone's temperature real quick because I know we are 10 minutes over. Emily, Travis, and Mike, can you stay for a bit or yeah?
I'm down to just a few minutes on battery and also afternoon appointments, but I'm enjoying it, so I want to hang out. If you see me drop off, it's a power problem.
Well, then we'll talk about you, Travis. No worries.
That's when we assign him all the tasks.
Why don't we start speed rounding the comments? We'll fly through quick. We'll keep our answers if there are questions to a minimum, and let's get back into what we're here to talk about. Sound like a good plan? Because we want to engage everybody, and I can never tell who's new or who is not. All right, moving on down the line. Oh, Peter did some research for you, Mark. Sharpies manufacture new office brands out of Atlanta, Georgia.
All right. Perfect. Thank you. Henry, value engineering is not specification reduction. Terminology colonials. Wow. Right on, Henry.
So just so you know, Kylie, Henry is the type of person you can send a multi-page email to, and he'll respond in kind with a multi-page email.
Those are not my favorite. That's not an editor's favorite kind of
if you've ever read Henry's emails, you would appreciate it. They're good. They're good. All right, moving down. Peter says everyone needs a good shell with a sweater wrapped around it. Amen to that.
That's what the turtle said. Yep.
All right, Shannon Pendleton, Mark, go.
Excellent comment on marking time. Push the long-term purchases. PH windows over granite countertops. In fact, there's no such thing as granite tops. You could use a quartz. You could use natural wood. You could make your own, and you could use the concrete. So there's no such thing as granite countertops. There's an endless resource of quartz in this world. So go that route, please.
Love it. Shannon Pendleton, I really wish for better envelopes for folks suffering in Texas right now for both extremes. Needing heat may be unusual in a deep freeze, but it would help the cooling costs that are sure to climb as their climate changes continue.
Yep. A lot of icicles in Matt Reisinger's video, I tell you.
Yeah, right?
So AJ from YouTube, hello, YouTube. The challenge is that these anomalous weather events are increasing year over year as evidenced by numerous efforts to catalog them. So our buildings do need to do better prepared for them. So right. You're not building a building for today. Odds are you're going to sell the building in 8 to 20 to 30 years. You're building the building for when it's going to sell again so that next person can enjoy their life, not have to redo it. It's easy to change a color. You don't want to change a wall assembly. And pick when possible, as Michael said, the no foam option, because at some point the building will probably be raised, and it's nice to be able to separate materials when at all possible.
Love it. Eric Schmidt, LinkedIn, met in the best way possible. Of course, adopt green building practices in the building code. Avoid or mitigate the issues that Texans are dealing with now. Does anybody know any good green building practices out there? Anybody? Anybody? Just throwing it out there. I think I heard there's a book coming up on this stuff. I love it. I love it. All right, one more. And then we'll get back to our conversation and wrap up the show.
April Rawson sends interesting event. Thank you. And we hope to do an adequate job, April. Thank you.
Yeah. And listen, everybody out there, real quick, please, right now, take a moment. Please follow Kylie, Travis, Emily, Mike on their LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, social media channels. And as always, please follow Mark, Willie, and myself. And remember, all of these shows are live on YouTube. So you can watch them there live, and you can go back and watch them anytime you want, which is awesome. So if you missed the show, you can always go back and watch. So, all right, everybody, listen, it is 2:12 or 1:12 into this already. Where are we going, Mark?
Well, I wanted to say, you mentioned that BS and Beer started at the beginning of the pandemic. Do you guys remember the rough date or the first topic you had when you brought it to the virtual online format?
I think it was last April. I mean, we had been doing in-person events for a couple of years, but I think it was April where we got Travis involved, and before Kylie, we had Brian as our fourth crew member. Then Brian changed roles, and Kylie came in. But yeah, it's been about a year, just about the same time you guys started, just about when Passive House Accelerator started their happy hour. I think we're all doing pretty similar things, just in slightly different ways, and all working towards the same goal.
April 3rd.
April 3rd. So April 3rd, I'm looking at my calendar here on this wonderful device that doubles as a telephone. And it says that April 3rd this year is a Saturday. So maybe the Thursday of April 1st prior, we can have a toast on BS and Beer, acknowledging the 1 year anniversary of BS and Beer virtually. And I think that might be a good time. Travis kind of winked there. Maybe it's a good time to make a little announcement that the morning of April 1st, Emily, Travis, Michael, Dave, and hopefully Kylie as well, and our friends at Passive House Accelerator are going to have a crossover event. And we got a little roundtable discussion, and I'm excited to say that morning we've got some pretty good things to share with people, and it just happens to be right around the year mark for everyone. So look for that. Of course, I'll figure out this LinkedIn thing one of these days, and I'll post it for everyone.
There's not going to be any BS on that show, is there, Mark?
There will be plenty out of my mouth. I'll tell you that. There will be plenty. I think everyone can carry their own weight quite well.
I love it. I love it.
My trade. All BS all the time.
All right. So now's the chance. Anybody out there right now, do you have anything that you would like to share with our audience? Anything coming up that you guys would like to share? Now would be the time to do it. And then if Jake's in the background and he would like to jump back in at any time, he can jump in too.
Perfect.
Sound good? TikTok.
Maybe who do you guys have coming up next week?
Next week we have a case study. Jespa, isn't that correct, Emily?
Yeah, Jespa Cruz and Anna Heath will be presenting two not quite past Jespa will be presenting his own house pH retrofit, Enerfit, and then also his renovation to Oxbow Brewing. So we're bringing the beer into BS and beer. So it'll be high performance retrofits.
Awesome.
Yeah, should be fun.
And Dave just added on the bottom of the ticker, and there's a link in the chat too. All you have to do is real quick. You go to the website. You just type in your email, and then right away you get the registration link, and it's linked to my calendar. So every week it just pops on my calendar. I press it, and then boom, BS and Beer Show is happening. So Enerfit is interesting, Michael. That seems to be really a part of a lot of people's presentations these days, is the Enerfit program. And I don't know that it's gotten to everyone's doorstep. So next week is the perfect time. Is the project he's doing, is it already completed?
His house is. We actually didn't realize it's the same project he presented a few weeks ago on Passive House Accelerator for their happy hour, but it's a good project. It's done. It was a multi-year retrofit to his own house. And I don't know much about the brewery other than it looks really cool. So I'm curious to learn about the details.
Absolutely. So and we've seen this before. You guys and Dave and I have had some similar guests. Sean McStay has, and then the Accelerator crew. And what's interesting is presenters. That's a thumbs up, Dave. Presenters. They always communicate differently on a different platform, right? And sometimes, like, maybe they were on a podcast with Emily or with Sean, or even with Jake, and then later on they're on this other video platform. And because the audience participates different and the platforms are different, the presenter actually it either works with their wheelhouse more, or they create the evolution, right? The first time we present anything is sometimes our best, but oftentimes it gets better, right? So I enjoy seeing presenters present, and then later on, like when we attended trade shows the next year, see them present again and see them hone their craft and make adjustments based on what we learn, right? And what we know today, because it's different than yesteryear.
Yeah. For sure. Jake wanted me to ask you guys a question. What has been your favorite guest on the BS show?
I got a top three. I don't know if I can do my favorite. I know that a lot of people really loved the Ted Benson episode. He carried the whole show, and I really enjoyed the discussion a little more. So when we had Chris Riley and Phil Kaplan on, That was amazing. Those Green Architects Lounge, which is a podcast hosted on GBA. Those guys were awesome. I actually really, as I said, I like the discussion side. So when we had Ben Bogey and actually Jake was the other guest on that episode, those guys had great chemistry, giving each other hell just like you would on the job site. So that was a great show. And then my personal BS hero might be Martin Holiday, and we recently got to have him on. So those are my top 3.
Awesome.
Love it. Love it. Love it.
Michael or Emily, do you guys want to add to that or stay away?
I don't know how to narrow that down. There have been so many great shows on things that, you know, I don't know enough about, right? So the shows on mechanicals have been really popular because I think in the building science community, that's often where we know the least. So those have been fun. I swear I learned something on every single show that we do. Lighting is one of the things I'm super passionate about. So the lighting show that we just did, talking about lighting for our health, was also really, really cool because we take for granted that lights are just so that we don't stumble in the dark. And there's so much more to that. Yeah, man, I don't even want to narrow it down. There have been so many amazing guests and topics that we've done, and it was interesting on the survey. So if you go on the BS and Beer Show website, join our mailing list too, because Mike sends out every week what the topic is. If you just go on and you join the Find Home Building link, it will just remind you that there's a show. It won't tell you what the topic is. So join the mailing list so you know what the topic is every week. But yeah, there's just been so many great guests, and on the survey we did, someone's like, well, you know, it must be hard to come up with topics, but I mean, we've got a running list of like a year's worth of topics because there's just so much cool information out there. So unfortunately, that's the non-answer. It depends on the day and what I feel like listening to.
Yeah,
awesome.
I have to say that Jake, I think Jake's been on twice. He was definitely an adequate guest, but sorry, Jake, I had to. No, but yeah, it's. I think, my personal, because Ted Benson is really what got me into this industry. Being on This Old House in the early '80s convinced me I wanted to be a timber framer, and I mean, just he's really. He's influential for me, so to have him on as a guest, not once but twice, actually was really an honor for me and everybody else. It's just like Emily said, it's hard to pick. I learn way more than I think I will every single week, so it's just a lot of fun to have people who are willing to come on and share their hard-earned information for an hour and a half every week. It's just amazing.
Absolutely.
Love it.
I look forward to doing this again, Dave. We have to have these fine folks back, eh?
Hey, yeah, sure. If we're going to Canada, A's the word. I love it. You guys have been awesome. Thanks again, Mark, for pulling everybody in. Jake in the background, Emily, Travis, Kylie, Mike. There's a lot to learn. Looking forward to the book for sure. And listen, guys, join us on our road show. We are in our motorhome. We're traveling the country, and we got some great things happening. We'll be streaming live from universities across the country and doing some amazing things, as well as traveling to houses, manufacturing, suppliers, bringing you all the live content and the live streaming on location. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Our trip has begun and we are off and running. So this is going to be a lot of fun. We look forward to helping you guys spread the word on education and sharing the BS building science. And when that book comes out, let us know. I'd love to hand it out to all the colleges that we're going to be at, because we are working with professors across the country right now.
Dave, I was going to say, do you guys have you have Maine in your destination sites? Because you get a twofer there with Emily and Michael.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we definitely are. We're hitting, I hate to say it, we're kind of following the weather at the moment, staying south, coming across, and then we're going to come back across up in the north. And then there's some plane rides in between, because we have some stuff that it's just timing is everything on where we're going to be in the job sites and what's going on. So a lot of fun things happening. So hopefully you guys can join us on this journey, and we'll bring you into the show, and we'll share all the good work you're doing. Sound good?
Speaking of the two first, Dave, so if you have Emily and Michael and their wonderful network in Maine, and Passivhaus, Maine is also incredible. You have Travis and Jake in Missouri. Now that's a handful. Those two characters from Catalyst and Arrow, but maybe you could go and have a special barbecue session, right? And, so those are the locations I'll give you this week, Dave, is Maine and Missouri. They start with my favorite letter of the alphabet, M, right?
Why M? I don't get it.
I don't get it either. It's just my favorite. Sometimes we just accept in this world.
We'd love to host you guys. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, no, thank you, everybody. And if you guys have projects you're doing and we're in the area, let's showcase them for you. So, all right, everybody, that's another episode of BS Friday with Mark Bare Naked Willie. Thank you to everybody for tuning in today. Please smash that like and share button one last time so we can keep growing what we do. We can build it better. We can build it healthier, and we can make it more affordable for somebody to live in a nice, healthy, warm, or cold home. So, all right, with that said, everybody, I'm Dave Cooper. Mike, Travis, Emily, and Mark, thank you so much. Don't go anywhere. We will come back to you after the outro. And everybody else out there, I'll see you tomorrow morning on Coffee with Dave, 9-ish time frame, coming to you live from South Carolina. Bye, everyone.